mask off for a minute. My name is Darren Wyatt. I'm one of the public information officers for California Interagency Incident Management Team 2. Thank you for coming tonight. We apologize, we are having some technical difficulties live streaming this, so we're going to try and get that up, but in the meantime, we're going to record it, and then we'll post it to the Facebook page and all the social media afterwards. But we're going to go ahead and get started. So first of all, I'd like to make some introductions. Over here we have Mr. Rob Rechsteiner. He is the Front Range Country District Ranger for the San Bernardino National Forest. We have Nikki Johnny, who is the Incident Commander for the Unified Command from the Incident Management Team. We have Chief Todd Hopkins, who is the Division Chief for CAL FIRE in the Riverside Unit in Unified Command. And then we have Chief Pat Russell, who is the Operations Section Chief for the Incident Management Team. So kind of what we're going to do tonight is we're going to start with a operational update on the status of the fire, where it is now. Then we'll have some comments from the agency administrator from the U.S. Forest Service, from Mr. Rechsteiner, then from the Unified Commanders. After that, we will have a time for some questions and answers. And the way we're going to do that is one person at a time can come up to the microphone, ask the question. The subject matter expert up here, who is the most appropriate to answer that, will do so. And we'll also be getting some questions over social media as well. Once that's done, we'll have the law enforcement representatives come up and talk about the evacuations and the road closures. But before we get started, there's a couple of people I'd like to introduce. Yucaipa Mayor David Avila. Sir. Mayor Pro Tem Denise Allen. And we have the Police Chief for the City of Yucaipa, James Williams. We also have the San Bernardino Unit Chief from CAL FIRE, Mr. Littlefield. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start out with our operational update.
Okay, I'll do this. I'll make it work. I'm used to this. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight to talk about the appellants in a little bit and give you currently where we're at. You know what? If I do this, maybe I can turn and look at the map. I'm not doing too good. So, one thing before we talk, I want to emphasize that I think is really important. On this incident, we're full suppression efforts, which means even though our tactics change in different parts of the fire, and I'll explain that here real quick to you when I run around the map, but we have resources and air assets working on all parts of the fire, depending on the priorities, to actively suppress the fire in all parts of the fire. So we're not monitoring or anything like that, any part of the fire. I'm going to step over here and talk real loud so I can point some stuff out to you. So, running around our fire map here, just so you guys understand the different branches and divisions, those are just geographical areas for us where we have work assignments for our different crews that are in there. Thank you, Darren. Sorry about that. Oh, you know I'm going to break that if you don't pull that a little closer. I need a lot of work, sorry. Our two areas of the fire that we're concentrating on right now is over here in Division Foxtrot, and this is the part that's up above that you can see. Fire did reach the Whittier Peak up in there. We are still going direct on it, and what that means, so you guys understand, and maybe you guys already know this, but in case you don't, that means that we have hand crews that are up going directly on the fire line, putting in fire line to hold the fire. We're supporting that with both helicopters and retardant today to hold that up. The plan is to take it around that big rock scree and tie it back into the Oak Glen Trail up there. And we have some dozer line out here that we're pushing in as a contingency to tie those together. This part of the fire up on top hasn't really moved a lot on us. We're monitoring it. We have overhead for the fire that's in there. With the plan that starts Saturday, we're gonna bring some crews in and they're gonna start working down to tie this piece in, as well as this top piece here up in branch 3 up in the wilderness area. The other part of the fire that we've got a lot of resources on, we're working over here in Millard Canyon. Our primary objective was to keep it out of Millard Canyon. We're still trying to do that. Again, we enforced that with direct line action, some indirect, and supported that with helicopters and retardant. And we have a contingency line down on Coral Canyon to bring it around and bring it up to the South Fork of the White River to keep it from getting out over in here, because we have additional values at risk with some of the communities over here. The bottom part of the fire over here in the van area where it started, where you see all this black, that's how we get our percentage of containment, is how much black we have on it. This is all looking real good. Folks are back in there, which is always a good thing. That's always a priority we want to do, is get anybody that is asked to evacuate, get them back in their homes as quickly as we can. And this is just patrol. We've already pulled some hose out. We still have resources out there that are driving around looking for hot spots, those types of things, and addressing those. So that is continuing. Up here in Pioneer Town, we have a contingency group that is monitoring that, and we have triggers in here for these other communities out here. If it hits that, we've got plenty of time that if we have to move some folks out of there and get some resources in there. So it doesn't go out fast. I know that it's a lot of angst when you're looking at this, but we are being successful. It takes time. Our containment at 30%, that's going to incrementally bump up. We did get a lot of success, and tomorrow there'll be more percentage of that containment will slowly go up. So I know it from sitting there watching day after day, it doesn't look like it, but we are being very successful in our operation. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Racksteiner. I'm the district ranger for the Front Country Ranger District. Been here for a few years now. So anyways, we've got this fire here. It's beyond the forest capability to manage. So we've got this incident management team in here. They're doing a great job. Our primary objective is firefighter and public safety, protect structures, protect property. Now, there's still fire on the hill. It could be with us for a while, but we are already starting to talk about, it's called a burn area, or burn emergency area response. And what that does is it looks at the burn severity of areas, and then we come up with a plan on how we're gonna keep the, the hills from coming down once we start getting the heavy rains and stuff like that, to really protect the infrastructure. So we're going to be in this for a while. I'm thinking, well, heck, once the fire goes out, we still got months of work to do. But we're already starting that conversation with the state and Natural Resources Conservation Service, as well as our other specialists, to put that bear team together. So anyways, we're here for the long haul. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you coming out tonight.
This fire started on I believe July 31st, and on Saturday we were asked to respond. Saturday night we were briefed at 1900, and we ended up taking the fire the following morning at 0600, because we had we didn't quite know the acres at that point, but it was around 15,000 acres, and it was beyond the local unit's capabilities. So in our delegation, we were asked to do 100% suppression. So we're not managing anything, we are suppressing everything to our best abilities. In fact, we are the #1 fire priority in the state of California. There's another fire going on in Southern California, it's the Stagecoach, it's on the Sequoia, but the Apple is #1. We do preparedness levels, and right now we're in preparedness level 4, which means we have a lot of resources moving around within the region, and we're starting to get it draw down in some of our areas. So think about it, this fire has over 2,500 people on it right now. So we are using a majority of the resources in California to suppress the apple fire. Right now we've set up 2 camps. Our incident command post is at Noble Creek. That's where we started. And that's kind of helping out the east side of the fire where those resources are coming back. And then recently, just yesterday, we started the Yucaipa Regional Park camp, and we have resources that are helping out on this west side with your communities, and that's where those resources are reporting to and sleeping. So I just wanted to emphasize that we are taking this seriously. The forest is taking this seriously, and it is the #1 priority in California. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Todd Hopkins. I'm one of the Unified Incident Commanders. I'm also the Division Chief for CAL FIRE and Riverside Unit. I'm the Division Chief at Oakland Camp and Division 8, or known as the Oakland Division. I'm acting as the Unified IC for CAL FIRE Riverside Unit, the CAL FIRE San Bernardino Unit, and also as representing the city of Yucaipa. I was one of the first resources to the start of the Apple incident. We came across 3 separate fires during the initial attack. One on the lower around Oakland Road and Tokay. The other around Oakland Road right below Wildwood Canyon, the other 2. Those 2 fires quickly grew together. We had resources that were responding into protecting the structures around Avenida Miraloma in the Cherry Valley area. With the winds that we were experiencing and the lack of fire history through the area, the fire quickly progressed and spotted over Mile High Road and started running towards Bogart Park up to the International Truck Trail. The first evening of the fire made it to Bluff Road in near the city of Banning, and that's where we were able to hold it for the first evening. We started on the first night of the fire. We ordered our Riverside County Type 3 Incident Management Team and started to set up our base camp at Noble Creek Park. We noticed that the fire fight was continuous through the night. The fire burned actively through the night. The next day when we started to reevaluate, we did go into Unified Command with the U.S. Forest Service on the first evening of the fire. As we started to evaluate how the fire was burning, we set some management action points and decided if it went over to Mile High and started running up towards the forest, that we would activate an incident management team from the Forest Service. If it spotted over Bluff Road, then we would activate one of the CAL FIRE incident management teams. We began to experience some 30-mile-an-hour wind gust. The fire spotted or ran from the truck trail down to 2 areas. There was a grain patch between the 2 fires. As it merged together, a spot went across the Noble Creek drainage, established itself in the canyon, and began to spread towards the northeast into the forest. So the decision was made to order the incident management team from the U.S. Forest Service. As was said, we went into Unified Command or did an in-brief that evening. I'm thankful that the incident management team was already pre-positioned and started heading down towards the area, and we were able to do the in-brief that night with the Type 3 team that we had in Riverside integrating into their Type 1 team and running the fire together starting the next morning. Everyone has been working very collaboratively and collectively together. As was said, we are doing 100% suppression efforts against the fire, and I want to thank the communities for being patient. I know that people are frustrated with the evacuation orders that are in place in Oakland. I can promise you that we are looking at those evacuation evacuation orders continuously throughout the day to see when we can lift them so we can get you either back into your homes and also get the commerce going back in the community of Oak Glen. I understand being the division chief at the camp that we are in the apple picking season and that this is a big time for Oak Glen, and I do understand the water issues with the apple orchards, with the Cherry Valley, Beaumont Cherry Valley Water District, with Little Sangronio Creek. That is being addressed and is being talked to continuously with our operations and our partners with Incident Management Team 2. So we are addressing all the issues. We are being aggressive. So please bear with us and we will get this fire out. Thank you.
So for those who don't have an update on the status of the evacuations, the evacuation orders for the city of Banning were lifted yesterday. The evacuation warnings that remain in place, that were in place, remain in place. The evacuation order for this area in San Bernardino County remains in place for this time because of the activity of the fire. And the evacuation warnings in Forest Falls, Pioneer Town, and Rimrock remain in place as well. So again, the incident management team is constantly evaluating those. We recognize everybody's frustration and desire to get back into their homes. We deal with this on every fire we go to, but we cannot release those areas or recommend their release until it's safe. And the safety goes beyond just the fire. There's infrastructure that needs to be rebuilt. Edison needs to get in for power lines. The water districts need to get in. There's crews still in there with apparatus. And so we need to make sure it's safe for everybody. So that's kind of where we're at. So we'll take some questions and answers now. I think there's an overflow room. I don't know how full that is, but if anybody from there has questions, you can come over here and please, you can stand at the back and wait for your turn, but let's try and engage in social distancing. So any questions? Yes, sir.
I'll go real fast. Where's your final control lines going to be? Have you established them yet?
That would be an operations question.
Oh, are you talking for the entire fire, sir? Or
Yes, yes.
So, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So this, as far as on this side, like I said, it's this direct, taking it back to the trail. Kind of, as long as we're going direct and we can safely do that, that's our control line. But we're always evaluating and putting in contingency lines if we get in situations where, due to terrain, due to the fuel, firefighter safety, all those things that we can't continue that, then we have multiple places that we can fall back that we've identified. And we've identified that on this side. Some of the retardant they put out, we call those check lines. Just if it does get in there, it'll slow it down and give us a chance to respond for that. So along the top here, like I said, going direct here, trying to keep it basically where it is, where you see this red now. I mean, it's probably moved a tiny bit. Once we get screwed up there from wherever they are, if they still feel comfortable, like it looks like when we've flown it, we've had folks up here every day walking and what we call ground truthing, making sure what we're seeing on the map is validated, that control line will be very similar to where the fire's edge is. This one down here is a little bit different in the fact that if we cannot hold Millard Canyon, and we're still optimistic that we're gonna try and do that, but the fire is moving on us a little bit. Our secondary line is down to Coral Canyon and around, like I said, and up, and we are looking at about 2 other options in there. It's still a little bit too early to tell absolutely where those control lines are gonna be, but we have multiple plans for the entire fire. And it's kind of see what the weather gives us, what the fuel's gonna be, you know, the resources we have, the terrain that our hand crews have to work in, the air support, so it's kind of a sliding scale, but we're comfortable with the overall plan. It might be this line or that contingency line that I was just explaining to you.
Thanks, Mayor. Anybody else?
We have questions from the Facebook Live group whenever you're done talking.
Okay, let's take one more from the audience real quick. Sir, if you could just come up to the mic so everybody can hear you.
On the Yucaipa Ridge, what's the status of that line on the north side of Yucaipa Ridge, on the other side of Wilshire Peak.
You're talking right up in here?
Yeah, right.
So the fire did reach the peak. Like I said, they're still working that line. So we still have crews up there going direct on it. They're still trying to hold it there. We supported that with retardant drops today. So we're still working that line where it is.
Appreciate those drops today.
Okay.
Ben, if you could give us one of the Facebook questions.
So this question is from Stephen on the Facebook Live, and he asks, he's curious how long the San Gorgonio Wilderness will be closed.
We can't say. It all depends on the activity of the fire. That brings up a good point, though. The entire wilderness area is closed, and there are fire restrictions in effect for the entire forest. And on your handouts, there's that, as well as the incident update. And I might add, anybody who's interested in receiving those updates, we send them out twice a day. If you'll send an email to 2020.apple@firenet.gov, and that's 2020.apple@firenet.gov. Just say that you'd like to get the updates, and we'll put you onto the distribution list, and you'll get those updates twice a day through that. The other thing is, with the active evacuation warnings and orders, no matter where you live, I would encourage you to connect with your local law enforcement agency and find out what their avenue for distributing alerts are. Every agency has different ways of doing that, but make sure that you have that and that you've signed up for what their alerts are. And maybe the chief can talk about that in a minute. So, okay.
So this one is from Barbara, and I think it's been partially answered here. She asks, what about Yucaipa Ridge and Forest Falls? What are the plans for that?
As far as Forest Falls, that just like Oakland, that's on the top of our priority for making sure that we provide for our priorities of life safety and then any values at risk and structures. So that's why we've got resources in there. That's why they're prepping those structures, prepping around those, doing those things that if fire was moving into that area, we've got a real good chance to have resources in there to defend the homes. Kind of as I already mentioned where it's at, we've got a couple other ridges that we are prepping with dozer line and hand line to tie in that we can use if the thing starts to move, and that rock out spree that I kind of described, and that direct's not going to work, and it's flanking where we can pick up and start working those lines as well. So that should answer the question. If that makes sense.
I just received a message to remind everybody that we do have a fire camp here at the park now. The trailheads are open, but we ask the public to stay out of the fire camp, especially with motorcycles and bicycles. We have crews working on 24-hour shifts, and some of them are sleeping during the day, and it becomes quite disruptive, and actually a security concern and a health concern in the COVID environment. So the trails are open, but the fire camp is closed to the public.
One of the last questions here says, can you please give a status update on the threat to Pioneer Town and Rimrock? And that's from Christina, excuse me.
I'll throw out there that we do plan to have a community meeting in Pioneer Town tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. That one will not be live streamed because there's not service there, but we will have one, and we'll get the information out to those people.
Having watched the fire from Oakland for a bit, we saw a lot of fixed wing resources in the early days of the fire, and then it kind of disappeared for a while. And then this afternoon again, it picked up, by Wilshire Peak. How do they decide what fixed wing resources the fire is going to get?
So we set our priorities for our aircraft every day at our operational briefing, and that's a combination of the ops group with our incident commanders, and we look at that. And then we have there's not a lot of those. So we set, sometimes they change based on smoke conditions. We have what we call air attack, which is up flying the fire constantly, evaluating where we feel that we're going to be successful with helicopter work. Some of our Type 1 helicopters are actually dropping retardant as well, not just water. A lot of people don't realize that. And then the big fixed wings that you come in. So the division supervisor, the branch on the ground might say, this would be a good ridge to put retardant on. And once we look at it from the air, they say, you know what, with the fuel, we're not gonna get the coverage in there, or the smoke conditions, or the wind conditions. That's not gonna do for you. Let's slow the fire down with buckets until some of those things change, so then we can insert that. And on any fire, when we're looking at retardant, it's not gonna put the fire out. We have to enforce that with ground troops, and that's why a lot of times we're putting it down in certain places to what we call check the fire or slow it down. We don't ever depend on a retardant line that it's gonna hold the fire and we walk away. So terrain may come into that, where if it's gonna take us a while to get troops, our hand crews up in there, we might lay some retardant down to kind of, again, stall the fire out, give us a chance to get in a favorable situation to accomplish those goals. And then we have to move them around on the fire because sometimes this may be the priority when we start, but for a couple hours, the priority may shift over here because the fire's done something that if we get retarded on it again, slow it down, that gives those crews a chance to do that. So our aircraft is a chess game, because again, we have limited resources. Sometimes we lose our aircraft for a new start. We've been real good on this fire. Our incident command have been successful of communicating on both the Forest Service and the CAL FIRE side that this, like Nick said, this is the priority fire. But aircraft's most effective on initial attack or initial new starts, because they're small, they haven't been established yet. So that didn't happen today. They flew fixed wing retardant on both sides of the fire, and we'll evaluate that every day and continue to use that. But a lot of times the plan we start in the day is not, we have to be very operationally flexible to change that based on some of those variables. This side of the fire got real smoky today, so we had to pull them off that, moved them back over here, cleared up, then we moved them back over.
Additional what Pat said, there's other reasons also for why we can or can't do retardant drops. Sometimes just the area doesn't allow the fixed wing to get into that area and have an effective drop. Some of the drops that we have been doing, the fire has been, as Pat said, slowing it down, but it's been eating through the retardant. So it's that constant, like you said, chess game that we have to keep on reinforcing it, going back and forth. Another thing is there are a couple other fires going on, and we can lose some fixed wing if they have certain types of emergencies. So the only time we can put restrictions on not losing our fixed wing aircraft is if there's a life safety hazard, either for the firefighters or for the public, and then we request a no divert on those air tankers.
How confident are you and the team that the cause of the fire was not arson?
CAL FIRE investigators were the ones who handled the investigation. They are confident that it was not caused intentionally by arson, and that it was caused by a diesel vehicle that was driving and kind of spewing some exhaust particles that caused 3 separate starts. The first 2 kind of grew together, and the third one is the one that really kind of took off. Is that correct?
So, as far as when the fires going together, it was a combination of that second fire that was up towards Wildman that spotted over is the one that ended up getting away from us. As far as the confidence of the prevention officers, they are trained in arson investigation. They have taken numerous reports and have, they said, multiple witnesses to when the fire started, and the same type of response back from the public. They still are looking for more information. So there is, if you were driving on Oakland Road around the time the fire started, I don't have the number, I'm sorry, but we can get you the number. They're asking that you call, and they're looking for any type of information that you may know. If there's something else that you might know, because you believe that that's not what the cause is, you can also call that number and give them what information you have.
I'll add to that a lot of times somebody sees something that they perceive in a certain way, and they'll put it out there on social media, and it will then run faster than this fire has run. And we see that. I had reporters call me, because that's what we do, is deal with the media every single day, saying that they had residents in the area where the starts were that told them that they saw people starting the fire and running away, and that law enforcement contacted 4 people and arrested them. Every single law enforcement agency that's been in this jurisdiction was at that meeting, and nobody knows what they're talking about. So please direct your attention to the San Bernardino National Forest Facebook page and Twitter as your official source of information. If you hear something that you're questioning, rather than spinning it up on social media, please call and let us answer that. And we will give you honest answers. We'll answer it the best that we can, but we really want to make sure that accurate information is being portrayed.
I'm probably responsible for talking about a lot of the arson issues in this area. 2009, there was an arson fire here, and the kid never was served, and never paid the penalty for it. So the community's a little sensitive about arson for a reason.
And we don't blame you, and you weren't alone. There were a lot of people that were talking about the arson, so it doesn't rest solely on your shoulders. And you can talk about it, but to go to us for this official source. Now, in the beginning stages, while it's under investigation, all we can tell you is that the cause is under investigation. They have to make their determination before we can actually release that cause. So sometimes that goes against the grain of what we want to do in providing accurate information, but we can't compromise the investigation and a possible prosecution if it is an arson.
And I can tell you, I was on the 2009 Pendleton fire, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I was on the incident management team that was part of that fire also. And what I can tell you is, whether it's the Cal Fire Prevention officers or the law enforcement officers from the U.S. Forest Service, that they are getting all the evidence and in order so they can arrest and prosecute an arsonist. However, once it gets into the court systems, then that's going to be however that decides. So with that 2009 case, the investigators did do their job. It didn't go anywhere after that.
Okay. Any other questions in the audience? Okay, I had the hand in the back first. If you can come up to the microphone.
Okay.
And then Bennett, any more on Facebook? Okay.
Mine's just a kind of a clarification, because, so the fire that, I'm from Forest Falls, and we could see the fire over the ridge, come up to the ridge. So is it going away from our community? I mean, because we have all rock and us, but we're still under evacuation warning. But is it heading away from us, or are we?
I'll let them answer that, but I can tell you an evacuation warning means be ready to go. And everybody should be ready to go at any time when you're in a wildland urban interface.
Sure.
But I'll let him answer that question.
So it's not necessarily going away from Forest Falls, but it's kind of back to fire behaviors and what we call a backing fire. It's coming down that ridge very slowly, as opposed to if it was what we call in alignment, where it was going up a drainage or had a wind push on or something like that, then it would be, a much more aggressive fire. So for us, tactically on getting in and doing things, a backing fire is a good thing. It's a less intense fire, it's moving slower. The other thing that's favorable, as you mentioned, all the different rock population and stuff out there, that's kind of slowing it down as well. So it's not moving necessarily away from Forest Falls where it's not in the threat, but it's not aggressively advancing to where we can't keep up with it or we can't have suppression efforts in place. So I guess that would be a better way to say it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question, actually 2 questions. Has there been a problem with people flying drones and causing issues with aircraft or anything like that?
We did have an incident about 3 or 4 days ago where a drone was in the area. It did not cause a delay or a turnaround on a flight, but we've continued our messaging. If you fly, we can't. So drones should not be in the area. Plus, we have a temporary flight restriction in the area, and it may take some time, but those drones, that should get sent to the software of the drone, and it shouldn't be able to lift off.
Okay. And then, will there be a full transparent report of the methodologies used to determine the cause of the fire?
So typically, I can speak for the CAL FIRE side. After a fire, we typically do what we call either an after-action review or a post-incident action summary. I can only speak from the CAL FIRE side that we do one. I have not worked with incident management team 2, so does the Forest Service do the same as a running a summary?
I think he's asking about the investigative report.
Oh, as the investigation? Oh, that, I don't know, I can't answer under the law enforcement. I'm assuming you can request things under the Public Records Act, if it's not out, but I'm sure that the news media will be constantly going to our department and then trying to post what they're allowed to post and what they're not allowed to post.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Let's take a couple of Facebook questions there.
So these ones seem to be consistent. They aren't necessarily tied to the area of Yucaipa, but there's several of them. So several people are asking, can you speak to how the fire is relating to the Morongo Valley? And I'll pose that question first, then follow-up question.
So, over on the east side, we already have, Pioneer Town in a evacuation warning, which means not an order, it's a warning. And like I said, we have, multiple trigger points, what we call management action points. When the fire gets to a certain area, it will trigger certain things. And one of those, obviously in the top priority is either going into evacuation warning or going into an evacuation order. So, we have a plan for Morongo Valley for that. It has not been activated yet. We do have some things that are to our advantage out here on this side of the fire. Remember when I was talking about the fuel and the different the fuel models of our fuel change gets a little bit more sparse. We do have some grass in there, but it doesn't have the high volume of fuel. The other thing that we have, which I know you guys are well aware of, is we have some significant fire history in this area with the Millard, the lake, the sawtooth, and once those burn off, it takes a long time for that vegetation to get real robust and full in there. So we'll use those burn scars to our advantage to try and herd the fire in there. The intensity of the fire goes down, the rate of spread of the fire goes down, and it gives us more success to go in there and do work. So that's why those things haven't been pulled on this side where the fire is. Those don't need to be acted on yet, but we do have plans for all these communities over here.
Very good. And then Catherine kind of has a follow-up question, which you've already partially addressed, basically asking, with the experience of the Sawtooth fire out there, do you see that fire repeating itself here, and what's the potential for that type of outcome?
Okay, so I wasn't on the Sawtooth fire personally, but a lot of the folks that are here were, and getting intelligence from them, our fire behavior analysts, with the fuel model and the previous fires, we don't anticipate the fire growth or the rest of that the Sawtooth fire had. So, but in saying that, we have to evaluate everything. It doesn't mean that the fire is not going to extend out here a little bit before we find opportunities of success that we can safely put the resources there to get. So the fire is going to continue to grow, and we expect that because we don't have all the things in place yet to fully suppress it. But is it going to get up and run and blow in there? We're not anticipating that. We're confident that our plans, our contingency plans, are going to keep that from happening.
Anyone else in the audience? Yes, sir.
Do you have a sense of a reopening in the Oakland site, just so we can keep crews and public aware of?
So I'm going to repeat the question for those on Facebook because the audio is tied in, and it's do we have any kind of a sense of when the evacuation order may be lifted for the Oakland area, and not a specific time. I can tell you that every single day there are meetings talking about that, and it is of a highest priority to get the residents back into their homes, but only when it's safe.
So when we do decide to, when we feel it's safe for the public to go back in, what I do ask is that when you do go back to your homes, that you do it safely, because we will still have crews and resources that are working in the area. That's one of the things we have to evaluate when we are doing repopulation, is first we look at what the fire's doing. Is it safe as far as in the fire growth? Then we look at the infrastructure. If that's all safe, and we talk with law enforcement to see if they deem that it's safe. There will be crews in here working for an extended time, even after it is reopened. So one of the concerns is, as I said, is it is apple picking season. There's a lot of tourism that comes up on the weekends, and just knowing how long it generally takes this time of year when my crews from Oakland Camp are trying to respond to a fire, having all those resources or the extra tourism up there is going to make trouble for us being able to get the resources around in place so we can effectively get this fire put out before it does get into any of the critical creeks or any of the critical historical trees that we have up there.
Any more, either in the audience or on Facebook? Okay, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your time and your willingness to sit here and listen to us. We will stick around if anybody has personal questions. We just ask that we continue to try and do the physical distancing thing while we're doing that. And again, I would encourage you all to sign up for your emergency alerts through your, in fact, we'll bring the chief up here for a sec. But to receive those emergency alerts, because that is one of the ways that you'll be notified that the evacuation order has been lifted.
Hi, good evening. I am Sherry O'Connell, and I'm the Emergency Services Coordinator for the City of Yucaipa. Chief Williams asked me to talk on the alert system. San Bernardino County has the alert system of TENS, Telephone Emergency Notification System. If you are not signed up with your cell phone, you need to register your cell phone online. It is a reverse 911 type of a system, so your landlines would all be notified, but we try to encourage all of you to go ahead and sign up with your cell phones as well. It will take your information and it will hit exactly where you're at. If you're just in Oak Glen, it would call you when we've got alerts on possible evacuation process or shelters in the area. It would share all of that information with you. I would also encourage you to make sure that you go online, as the chiefs were both saying, and go to all of the networks, all of the social media sites that are government-owned, city-owned, whatever. Make sure you're going to Yucaipa PD, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office, San Bernardino County Fire, CAL FIRE. Make sure you're hitting those particular sites, because if you're not, it's possibly not accurate information, and we worry about that. We've seen a lot of that. So 10 system is our main notification. Please sign up for that. You can go to San Bernardino County Fire to sign up for that, or just the San Bernardino County website and type in TENS, Telephone Emergency Notification System.
Yeah, thanks. And I'd be remiss if we didn't give a huge shout out to the city of Yucaipa for allowing us to use this facility, and also to Captain Bennett Malloy from CAL FIRE San Bernardino unit he's the one who really got this set up for us, and his staff. So Rob has been helping with the live streaming. We appreciate you guys' help, and again, thank you.